So we want to go short or long, we'll see, into the law of life versus the law of death. So we know that the human being is composed of two elements, of a body and a spirit, and we have spiritual needs. We need love, justice, truth, security, freedom, harmony, joy, understanding, and so on. I say so, needs are like empty vessels. You need to fill them in order to release them. Yeah? So you have the need, but you have not the means. So you need to fill that hole with love, You need to fill that hole with justice, in order to act on that. So where do you feel the needs that your spirit has? There's only one source that has that what our spirit needs, and that is God. And the only way to take it is trust. Yeah, that's the connection. And the connection is made to the identity. We'll see that's the plugging in, that's the umbilical cord. Now we have needs of the body. We need electrical impulses. Those come from what the spirit decides because of his fulfilled needs. And chemistry, oxygen, water, food, temperature, light, and that comes from nature. That we must take in from nature. So if we would follow these two dependencies, one to God, one to nature, we would be not able to become sick. Okay? Disease cannot occur because you are in the right dependency. Because if someone is satisfied with love, he will always eat what is right, and he will not have any issues with food. Because everything starts with the first thing, that first connection. Now, if the human spirit thinks he's a God, then he cannot trust God anymore, but he must trust, so he cannot fulfill his needs. So he trusts now animals and people, but what do people have? How much righteousness does your brother have, or your wife? So there is no justice, no truth, no security, no freedom, no understanding. And when you have that not, what kind of an impulse do you give into your body? You give a wrong impulse into your body. And then you take the wrong decisions for food. And so disease, pain, and death is the consequence. Yes, that comes out into the body because that's how things work. So the self-deception of the human being, because he believes he's God, he believes he's independent, so that's why he gives first in order to receive. He thinks the gain is in receiving. Now, is that possible that you can give before you take? Yeah, so you can never spend the money if you don't have them first. You know that you never can spend money that you don't have? No, you have them on a credit card, or someone has promised them to you. If not, you could not spend them. So this is a total illusion, a total impossibility to believe that any time you give something for yourself. The truth is that you must take in order to give. And trust is input and decisions are output, because they go into the body and you do something with them. And what is not known to man is that mother, father, spouse, child, friend, pet, and so on is the place where they take from, where they are dependent from. As all problems come because we are trusting another person than God, and we are not aware of it because it is subconscious. Yeah? So I want to give this as an example with nature, with a stove. Yes? So you have a stove, and the one that made the stove said that the stove needs electricity. And you have more sources of electricity, at least to 120 or 110 or 380 volts. You have here, what do you have in Australia? 240? I didn't have Australian things. So the one that makes the instrument says this stove need to be dependent on this or on that source, yes, to connect. Now, we connect it to the right source. That's a legal connection. And having this legal connection, how much can we do with the stove? How many meals can we cook? Many or not many? Many. Does someone tell us what to cook on the stove? Or can we cook whatever we want? Yes. So you see, when the stove functions properly, you can cook what you want on it. That's freedom. Okay? As long as the stove is connected to the right source, he has freedom to do what he was made to do. Now, if you connect the same stove to the wrong source, that's an illegal connection. What happens? How much can you cook on the stove? Not much. It does not work, cannot cook what I want. That's captivity. So you have a stove, but you can do nothing with it. The same thing applies to the humans. Everyone needs to have a connection. He must be put into a power source. And we human need love. So we need to take that love by trust. And if the truth is there that I'm a creature of God, then my connection is automatically, and that's a lawful binding. And then all my decisions are free or not free? Free. They all are free and right. God never put under law our decisions. That's why we have freedom. Yes? But we can never have independency. We must be bound to someone in order to function. That we must understand. Everyone binds himself in order to function. So if you believe now you're a God, you think you have no binding, but then you bind to the unlawful binding. That is what the Bible calls sin. And how are your decisions now? They are unfree and wrong. So disease proves an unfree spirit. Yeah, that proves disease. That's why I'm so glad for disease, because it proves that my spirit is bound to the wrong source, and I want to force that wrong source to the right, because I'm not aware that I am connected to that person. I cannot. You see, why would you dream your husband after he passed away? Because you love him, you have nothing to give him anymore, or because you miss him, you have not to take anymore. Yeah? Pardon? Yes, because you're dependent. That's why you go to the cemetery 2 times a day, or I have a patient that goes 4 times a day. In 8 years, 4 times a day to the cemetery. Why do you go? To take or to give? Of course. That's where it draws you on. You must go, because there is your source for love and fulfillment. So, but those are unfree decisions. So if we would be bind to the right source, everything in our life would be perfect. We could do what we want, because God didn't want us to be robots. Yeah? He gives us a task, but He never says how to fulfill the task. The how is ours. We can do it like we know and have the capacity to do it. But if we are in an unlawful binding, we cannot do what we want. We must please the one, we must please that one, we must compromise. We are just bonded beings. So unfreedom is always the result of a wrong power source. Yes? And we have these two things. The input determines the output. But the output was made in a spirit to be always free and by conviction, never by force or by unfreedom. So here is, in one thing, the law of life. So in the heart, we have only two actions, and it is trust, that is to take, and give, that is decisions. And we must do first trusts in order to decide. And everything that we decide goes in our body, either it is a destroying or a living energy. Yeah, that's why we can see on the body where things come from. That you never see. This becomes visible because it comes into action. Yes? Every decision is an action. So you must take first somewhere in order to give. The law of death gives in order to receives. That's the law of death. So there is no way out here, and now we have our spiritual needs, and we can only fulfill them through relationships. So that's why you must have a love relationships to take, and you must have a love relationship to give. Now, can you ever mix them? Can you, at the place you love a person and you trust a person, can you give that something to that person, or can you only take something from that person? And for the person you give, can you ever take anything, or you can only give him something? Have you understood the question? So can you have a exchangeable relationship or only a one-sided relationship? Now, you see, don't forget, every action must go in a circle. And if everything in the universe, in the creation, must take in order to give, and everything is bound in a circle to each other, can the place where you take be mixed up with the place where you give? You understand? It cannot be. Yes? So let us look to nature, because in nature we can always see it perfectly. Let us take a tree that makes apples. You have apples here in Australia? You have. So, the tree needs what to make the apple? He needs water, he needs the ground, he needs sun in order to make the apple. For whom does he make the apple? For the sun, for the earth, for the ground, for the water? For whom does he make for the other ones that needs that, because he's in a circle. We call that ecosystem. And the whole ecosystem is a big circle in which everyone is dependent. Take in order to give. Yeah? So, of course, then we have the bees. You have bees in Australia. So they must go to take in order to give. Yes? So they go to make a job. If they would not go from flower to flower, what would happen? we would have no apples, even though we would have a sun. Yes? So let us make it very, it's so obvious in nature. You can never make the input and the output at the same place. Where you take, you can only take. Where you give, you can only give. You like it? It's perfect. So you are a channel where you're plugged in, you can nothing give. Or how much does this computer, if I would plug it in, give to the power source? Nothing. But he must do something with that power for someone else. So he works for us. But he doesn't work for the power source. Yes? He doesn't give the power source anything. He just takes from the power source in order to give that. So the purpose in all creation is taking or giving. Yes, in deception it's taking. In the deception, in the law of death, that's purpose. But in the law of life, purpose is to give. Yeah? Pardon? Exactly. But where you take from, you cannot give to. And where you give to, you cannot take from. Let us make that plain. So now if we have that condition made, we know when we enter into a relationship with a human, how much can we take from a human? None. So whenever we have a relationship with humans, to spiritually take from that human, it is nonsense. It's wrong. That's why we got a law, and God made a law of dependency, and the one side you're dependent, on the other side you are independent. Yes, very important. And if we just take the two laws from the Bible that says, love God with all thy heart, with all thy soul, with all thy might, for what purpose? Now, that's why it's so important to understand the law. In every action, you must have how many actions at least? 2. You must take in order to give. So when you love God, how much can you give God? Did you say something? I didn't hear. Yeah. Pardon? Well, so when you praise Him, do you give Him something that He does not have already? If we will come back, we will see the circle. Yes? Pardon? Yes, what means jealousy? Possession, possessivity, yes? Yes, God is a jealous God because He has a right to be jealous, because we are His. And He is not happy when we are stolen from Him or we are going somewhere else. Yeah? So yes, God is a God. To Him belongs everything. But is He jealous for Himself or for us? You see, when we don't know the law, we might think God is jealous for Himself because He cannot live without us. Can He live without us or not? Can He be happy without us or not? Of course, He was happy before us. And He always will be happy. He just wants to be happy because of us. So, when we God's the command, love God from all thy heart, from all thy soul, from all thy might. There's only one action in that. That is to take. And when he says, love thy neighbor as an equal with you, that is in order to give, because you can nothing take from a human. You see, it's impossible. It's also impossible because you never see in nature that God made that one species can live from the same species. You see, if one species has a need, he cannot take that need from the same species. It's impossible. It must take his need from another species. And that is always higher than him. So when we need love, we must take it from where we cannot give it. And we must give it where we cannot take it. Is it easy? Is it simple? It's very simple. But you see how mixed we are? Yeah, we don't know. So that's why God gave us, we are unconsciously all dependent on humans and animals just in order to take. We're not aware of that.
So we're God's children, and it's the same thing with the child.
Yes, if you're God's child, then you take from God.
But your child takes from you.
Well, yes, as long as it is a child. But when it grows up, it cannot take from you anymore. That's why at the age of 12, it should be, yeah? So it's just so it should be connected to him, not to a human. So now, God gave the 10 Commandments with a purpose. The purpose is to open our eyes where we take and where we give. And I got stuck with the 7th commandment. You know the 7th commandment? It says to not commit adultery. Now you see the first 4 commandments are exclusive, or the table is exclusive and the other is inclusive. Yeah? The source is always ex or the inclusive? Exclusive, because there is no alternative to that. The source is always exclusive. That's why you have one table and 2. That's why God wrote the law on 2 tables. And he could have written not only 10 commandments, he could have written 1,000. He could have not written more than 2 tables, because there are only 2 actions, no matter how many laws there are. So, he says no other God, no bowing down to images, not to take God's name in vain. And I have no time to speak about that, but all these 3 commandments have just one thing. When you do them, what do you prove? You take from God or not from God? Because those are outside things, yes? And outside things are effect. And so, here don't trust, don't take. Now, do not kill, that's the 5th commandment, the 6th commandment, and the 7th not commit adultery. I know the 10 commandments from my childhood, because I was raised a Christian, but did I understand the law? No. I married with 18, you remember from yesterday. I wanted a woman that has 3 things. Aside that she should be beautiful. She should understand me. Something wrong? She should listen to me. I mean, not just listen because I like to talk. And so I want to share. I want to communicate. Yes? And she cuts you down because what do you think like that? So you you go back into your shell. Yeah? Because you want to come out and I wanted a woman that smiles when she raises in the morning. In the morning, it's when you're happy in the morning, when you raise from the bed, something is right with you. But if you don't raise up in the morning I was always very upset when our children came to breakfast like that. I said, hey, can you not be happy in the morning? I couldn't stand that at the table someone should not be happy. I was the funniest person while I was a student and while I was a doctor. On my unit, I had a joke at every moment. I could not sit down and say something. While I did surgery, you had to joke. You must laugh. You must make others laugh because you live from there laughing, because you need harmony. So then you make them laugh and then you feed yourself from them. Was I aware of that? No. So I was 8 years old when I planned to marry, because I was afraid that Jesus would come and I would not be married. So I hurried on because everything I dreamed in my life was to have a happy marriage. Isn't that another good thing? That was my dream. I said, if I will have a happy marriage, I will be satisfied and everything would be nice. So I got married with 18. And how is my wife? Does she smile every morning? Does she smile every morning? No. Does she understand me? Does she listen? So why did I marry her? Out of love? Did I marry her to give her something, or did I marry her to eat her up? So why did I go into that relationship? Why? Just because I needed her. Was I aware that I was selfish? Was I aware of it? Zero. I thought those are my rights. Do you know that humans have rights? Yeah, I thought those are my rights. And so she was not the one that I wanted. And so I became very unhappy. And now you're a Seventh-day Adventist. When you're once married, you're married forever till you die. So what do? You don't divorce. And so I stayed in my marriage for 20 years. But I got a lot of addictions during that time, because when you're unhappy, you must do something about it. Yes? And then you go into sports, you go into TVs, into movies, into pornography, whatever you go, because you must be happy. You cannot renounce your need. And you must find some people who make you happy. So after 20 years, I was done. I was most miserable. I was just driven. I was so hungry that a woman should love me. You have no idea how that feels. It was not sexuality in the first. It was just to want someone who loves you, who does not use you, or who does not want something from you, just is there for you. And so I made an arrangement with God. I never wanted to leave God, but I said, Lord, I must do a detour. I have to be happy. I was 39 years old then, and I said, if I not do now something to get a woman, because with 39 you're still good on the market, and I was a physician. I finished my specialty, so you have something, and you can search, yeah, and you still can fish that woman that makes you happy. And then I said to God, I come back to you. Yeah, so, and you will forgive me because you forgave others, I saw, obviously. And so you will forgive me also. But I must go to find that woman that makes me happy. And so I planned the divorce, I planned the separation. It was a hard time for me to give up our foster children, but I was so driven, I was so down. I couldn't sleep in the night anymore because I wanted to be happy. And I said, if I not do it now, I never do it again. And so we planned the separation for the 26th July 2003. And that's when the school years ended in Germany and in the area where we live. And then we finished there So I quit my job at the end of 2002 in order to stay home to see if I can fix the marriage. But all my trying failed. And after about 3 months, I said, we must do So I quit the house where we lived. I arranged everything for the 26th of July. Everyone should go. I would go back to my mom. She had an apartment with 3 rooms, so I would take a room with my mom's. My wife would go to her mom, and their children would go to their mom. And so everyone starts again from his mom. And before we had to separate, at the end of May, beginning of June, there is Pfingsten, how you call Pentecost, yeah? Pentecost vacation. And when I still had hope, we made an appointment with a consular family in the US to go there to visit them, and they should help us to fix our marriage. But when we went there, we could not when we arrived there, I already took all the decisions that there's no return for me. No matter what they counsel us, I will not return. And that's how it happened. We came to that at the 1st June of 2003. We spoke with them. I didn't want to speak, but the children said, no, you are here, so go to speak, because they also maybe wanted that we should not get divorced. We spoke for 3 hours, and I said, I will never take my decision back. I will divorce. I will separate because I cannot anymore. And I said with all my sincerity, I said, I need to be happy. All my needs are good needs. And I have the proof for 20 years my wife cannot fulfill them. Can any wife fulfill my needs? Was I aware of that? 0. I was so convinced that I need a woman that makes me happy. So after those 3 hours of talk, my wife never wanted to let me go. Yes, she was weeping because I wanted to leave her. The counselor's wife was weeping because she said, why can you not love her? The counselor's was quite relaxed, and I was strong. Never get. And after this conversation, I went to take my tennis shoes, and there came a thought. And the thought said like this: if you are going to keep my commandments, I will take care of your needs. the thought just made me very glad because, my needs can be fulfilled. But then I saw to the condition, the commandments, and all I knew was no adultery. Now, I committed adultery a lot of times in my head, but never physically. So, if I now would go to divorce, of course, I would commit adultery. But I said to God, how shall it work? I was 20 years faithful, so to say, yeah? And I was not happy. How will you now make me happy if I'm going to stay? So I gave up the thought, and a week went by, and after 1 week we sat again together with this family just to say goodbye. It was a camp meeting. After the camp meeting was over, it was the 7th June 2003. And while we were sitting there, 10 people together, our 3 children and 3 from their family, the gentleman, he was sitting on my left side, suddenly looks to me and says, "Are you committed?" And the moment he says, "Are you committed?" I was thinking back then, and I know what he wants to ask me, so I thought he asked me, "Are you committed to go, to leave your family, to divorce?" And so I answered loud and very strong, "Yes." But he asked me not, "Are you committed to leave?" but he asked me, "Are you committed to stay with your family?" And so his question and my answer just fell together like perfectly. And the children heard me and they got scared. They said, "Did you change?" When we came here in, he was so convinced, nothing. And I got scared as well because I said something I didn't mean. But now, and you see, God is always very good. He uses all our mistakes for our own good. Yeah, even though you're too fast in thinking you know what others will ask you, He still uses that for your good, because I am a person that has had issues with decisions taking. I would not take decisions so that, yeah? So He had to help me somehow to take a decision. And so here I was. I said yes, that I should stay. And now I had to do something immediately. Yes? Did I have much time to decide? No, I had to either take the yes back or jump after it. Why I did what I did, why I jumped after the yes, I don't know. Maybe it were the children. I have no idea what made me to take the yes and say it inside also yes. But what happened was in that second, in that millisecond that I said that yes, everything in my life changed. From the man that was so hungry to be loved by a woman, that hunger and thirst was satisfied in a second. I was a driven person. I got a peace that since then never left me. What happened with my addictions? I was a Bible worker. I was preaching almost every Sabbath in my church and all around. I was a youth leader. The youth came home to me and we did the holy thing we took from church and make video nights, movie nights, and did all those bad things. And I was sometimes afraid that God will kill me on the pulpit, because I did all those bad things during the week. And I wept with God for 20 years. I promised Him I won't do it again. And it kept me a week, it kept me a month, and then I fell again. I had one gentleman once who said, I only 1 year do self-abuse. You know what self-abuse is? We have children here, I cannot speak. Yeah? So once a year. I said, oh, what a brave man. One sin a year, yes? Is he a free man or a bondman? If he does it once a year. He's a bondman. Yeah, Jesus says he who committed sin is a slave of sin. So, I promised to God that I would overcome that. It never happened. Never ever. But on the 7th June 2003, in the moment I took that decision to stay, my addictions were cut away like nothing. And since then, I was not even tempted to go back in neither of those addictions that I had. It was just who the Son makes free is indeed free. You don't need to fight that again. You have other fights to do, but your past is gone. That experience was so strong that I was always a doubter that God exists or not, because I'm a doubter by nature. But I could not doubt God anymore because of the experience. Because I could not give me neither the peace nor the victory over my addictions, because you have 20 years of fights that never work. So from that on, I started to change things. What happened on that 7th June 2003, that's my born-again experience, I started to take again from God. Until then, where did I take from? Who was my source? My wife. Yeah, my poor wife must be my food. Never eat your wife because it doesn't taste good. Yeah? Better eat from God. He tastes better. He says, come, taste and see how good the Lord is. So I started to take from God, but it's now 16 and a half years since then. Do I still sometimes get confused where to take? Yes or no? Unfortunately, my wife still is somewhere on this side, and I must learn to put her on the other side. So, don't trust, don't take. There's only one law that says where to take, and that's the 4th commandment. The 4th commandment is the only commandment that says who you are. Yes? The 4th commandment says, you are a creature of God. And this day is just a remembrance of your birthday. But you can keep the commandment like the Jewish kept it, and it had no meaning. So Sabbath, you can keep it and still without meaning. That is, you don't keep it. You only keep Sabbath when you know that you are not a God. So that's why you need to take God, and He says, I'm water and I'm bread, and you can never give to the water or to bread anything. You can only take from them. God never explains Himself except as being food. Read your whole Bible. And He always says, I'm food. Because what can you give to food? Nothing. Jesus says, I am the manna that came down from heaven, so you have to eat me. And how much from those 5,000 ate Him? No, from those 5,000. They all left Him because they said, no, we don't need you to eat you. We don't want your food. You just want your earthly food. They came because He multiplied the earthly bread. And He says, I am the bread that comes from heaven. If you don't eat me, you die. So, you never can give God anything. So the 4th commandment is the only commandment that proves that you take from God. But it could only also prove that you don't take, like if you just keep it outwardly. But it's that commandment that says, and there is the fifth commandment, honor thy father and thy mother, that it might be well, that is, that you might be healthy and live long. I must tell you, the most problems that we have is we cannot be detached from our parents. And you can never give to your parents anything as long as they are in debt to you. As long as you're bound with your umbilical cord to your parents, you cannot honor them. When you miss them, when you need them, then it means that you are connected to them for the purpose to take. That's why we have almost every patient complains about his parents. And if your parent has abused you, I have this lady who was abused by her father, who was a pastor. And he abused her from the age of 8 to 17. And she came to see me in one of my seminars when she was at the age of 59. Her father, 84. Was she healed? She went 5 years before she came to see me to a Christian psychotherapy for 10 weeks. They suggested to her to interrupt all relationship with her parents. What do you think? Her diseases multiplied or lessened? Multiplied. She got fibromyalgia, pain everywhere. Because what says the law? What do you need to do with your neighbor if your neighbor is your father and he abused you? You must love him. But you can only love him if he is not in debt to you. The lady is now about 61 or 63, and I consult her, but she says she cannot do it. She cannot go to her father and say, Father, you never hurt me, because it's not my life. It's not my body. You hurt God. But I'm still working. I'm praying for her, and she's on my list where I have to call her because she asked me to talk again with me. And I hope she will take that decision to want to love her father, because she has diseases since the age of 17. And she has it on both sides because she accuses both mother and father for what has happened to her. Now, is it wrong what the father did? Yes. Is it a double measure evil that he is a pastor? Yes. And he was never caught, so to say. So when it came out, it was over 40 years. So no judgment can judge him. Yeah? And so it is out of, but her, she needs to love her father and her mother. But she only can love it when she knows that she is a created being, that her father is not owe her anything. So we must understand the fifth commandment. That's why Paul says it is the first commandment with a promise. It is the testing commandment. If you can honor your parents, you can only do it because you're born again and you are trusting God and God alone. That's why if we can not be loving our parents, that is, we will see to next weekend the love definition and what it means to love, then if we cannot do that, then we are prisoners and we must destroy ourselves. And God puts there the first commandment of father and mother, and then come all other relationships. But those all other relationships are not so big I mean, even if you overcome all of them, but you cannot honor your father, it's worth nothing. That's why the 5th commandment is the test commandment. If you have no issue with your parents, if you can be independent of them, loving them with God's love, then you are a free agent. If not, your body will show it up to you. Latest when she dies. When parents die, you know how many heart attacks are just coming because the parent passed away? You can even say which blood vessels get clots, if it's the father or the mother side, whatever it is. Father and mother are playing the major role in disease, and the Bible proves it. So, in the whole Bible, you find only one problem. If you go through it, it's human dependency. It's that you want something from the humans or from a creature. This is a prisoner, and it is Paul, the prisoner. Lucifer trusts in himself. That's why he detaches from God. The angels trust Lucifer and detach from God. Eve trusts the serpent. Adam trusts Eve. Abraham trusts his wife. Isaac trusts his son. Jacob trusts his mother. Moses trusts the people. Elijah trusts Jezebel. Do you know Elijah, the prophet? It's a big guy. And this man had such a great victory. And this woman just writes a letter and sends it with a servant and says, tomorrow at this day you will be dead. Why did she not kill him on the spot? Why? You know why? She could not. But you see, if you cannot kill someone, you can threaten him. And then he kills himself. So he runs away. Because he trusts that the woman has power to take his life. Has a woman power to take your life? Has a man power to take your life? None. But Elijah fails in that. Peter trusts the Jews. That's why he plays God. And you know why Paul is in prison? You know why Paul was put to prison? Whom did he trust? You know the history? Paul trusted the leaders of the church because they suggested he should do something just to please the Jewish people that came into the faith, so that he should show that he still keeps the ceremonial law. And he was caught in the temple. And he was put into prison for many years just because he trusted humans and wanted to please humans. So there is no other problem. The error of our mind, all problems of man originate in one error. We think my spiritual needs are satisfied by what others are doing. They must be alive to do it. That's why we need our dead. We would never need to remember our dead people if we would not need them for us. I need to be loved, respected, honored, praised. Others are not allowed to do me wrong, lie, betray, beat, or steal. I judge and condemn them when they are doing the wrong. I have to control time, circumstances, money, goods, and the life of others around me. The more power I have over others, the better I think my needs are fulfilled. Those are the results of the error. That's why we have stress. That's why we have anxiety. That's why we have conflicts and wars. That's why we have all kinds of disease, depression, cancer, diabetes, high blood pressure, inflammation. It's one cause, because we trust created beings. But we trust created beings not by choice, but because we must do it, because we believe we are someone that we are not. So how can we quit trusting humans? What's the only way to quit trusting humans? Pardon? Well, trust is a subconscious automatic thing. Even if you want to trust God, you cannot as long as you know that you're a God. But it's also subconscious that you know that you're a God, or? Do you see yourself plugged in someone, or do you think you're independent? What do you think? I mean, if you look and be sincere, you think your thoughts, your decisions are independent. That's why God must open our eyes to see that we believe we are gods because we believe we are independent. And the only way to get rid of trusting humans is to destroy the error in our spirit. We need to know who we are. That's the only way. Then trust in God is automatic. If you're a child of God, you cannot trust anyone else. If you're a God, you deceive yourself, thinking you can trust anyone. But trust is subconscious. Trust is already an effect of who you believe you are. So I found out that it's only one thing we need to make clear. We must have the truth written in our hearts. And the truth is, who am I? And if I'm a created being, I solve all problems. And we will look to that next weekend when we go to see the solution, how we get out of the mess we were born in. We will never be judged because we were born like that. We will only be judged or because we were so stupid to remain like we were born. Yeah, we kept to the deception instead of getting rid of it. But since it is subconscious and we don't know it, until we don't know it, we cannot remove it. That's why the hardest and greatest effort that heaven and God does is to make you aware that you have something in you that needs to be exchanged. There's something in you that needs to be put away in order that you should be again an agent that can live in good relationships, free of them. I mean, not wanting something from them. It's a process, of course, but it starts somewhere. And I will never regret my decision that I took on 7th June 2003 to remain in my marriage, no matter how my wife is, no matter if she has changed or not, because it doesn't matter. Your happiness is never dependent on the relationship. It's just dependent on how you, from where you take and how you give. The other, yes, you can work better if both are going on the same way. But your happiness cannot be dependent if the other is good or not, if he smiles or not, if he understands you or not. It is just an illusion that makes you happy. So, any questions? There's a microphone here for those who... He also has one. So there's a good thing. We have microphones and no questions.